Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Budinick, the Executive Vice President of the retained executive search firm Stiles Associates. And today, our clients are expressing interest in engaging our firm to help them identify top talent to really transform their global supply chains by using cognitive manufacturing. So, today, I thought I would bring in a guest to help us learn a little bit more about what is uh, cognitive manufacturing. His name is Anir Bhattacharyya. Anir has an impressive resume of success in helping a number of well-known companies transform their global supply chains. His clients have included some well-known brands such as Black& Decker, GlaxoSmithKline, Tiffany's, Halliburton, and Volkswagen, to name a few, along with some impressive academic credentials, including an MBA from Duke University. First off, Anir, thanks for joining us today. As you know, there are a lot of acronyms for cognitive manufacturing, perhaps more widely known as the digitally enabled supply chain. So I thought we'd begin there in demystifying the myth in terms of the terminology. Anir, what is meant by the digitally enabled supply chain? How does it work? And what does it hope to accomplish?
Oh, fantastic question. So thank you for the opportunity, Tom, right? So if you really see there are um, two big transformation that from the supply chain arena the organizations are going through. One is purely manufacturing within the four walls of the organization and supply chain. The manufacturing is also there, but you have supply chain from suppliers to organization and organization to distribution, the retail, B2B, B2C. So, and me as a person, I do not differentiate manufacturing and supply chain so much. That's all together for me, but some organizations do. So if you really see this, every time there's a transaction happening, we ask as leaders that this node, NODE, this node is digitally enabled or physically enabled. What does it mean? It means that do I have enough technological power in this particular node? Suppose there are 8 to 10 nodes in a supply chain, right? Product innovation, NPI, uh, supply raw materials, purchase orders, manufacturing, auto management, warehouse management. You take it, right?
Yep.
All these are nodes, right? We ask ourselves as leaders of supply chain that, hey, which nodes are more mature than the other? Which nodes are more physical? Which nodes are more digital? Because at the end of the day, if one problem that every organization is wanting to solve, Tom, is end-to-end transparency. End-to-end transparency. And if you do not have digital supply chain and or manufacturing, you will not be able to do it, right? If you don't have the digitally enabled supply chain end to end, you will not be able to go backward and go forward in your supply chain agenda. So transparency is the biggest cause that's driving digitally supply chain or manufacturing supply chain, and it's a big transformation agenda.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Anir, but it's something that really U.S. manufacturing needs to really totally embrace. If they're vendors to any of their customers, their vendors are going to demand that they're in sync with them, digitally speaking, and so if they're not on board, they need to get on board. Would you agree?
Yeah, so also this is a very good question, right? Or very good rhetoric that how the industry lines are blurring between a supplier and the OEMs, be it in globally, be it local in the US. So one of the things that we are noticing, Tom, especially after COVID, a lot of deglobalization is happening. So not everyone is going to China anymore, right? So how do you come a nearshore approach for that? You may want 10 suppliers out of 90 suppliers to be within your four realms of four walls of your boundary. Let them come in, share your IP as much as you can, and you really cut down the inspection time and the lead time,
Sure.
right? So we are seeing those changes right now, especially post-COVID. So yeah, it's been a very interesting time for us, and I feel like really not only US to your question, But globally, we are seeing a technique of deglobalization. Regional hubs are coming in. So Austin has got a lot of traction now, right? Dallas has got a lot of traction now. All other areas of the Midwest have got traction now, right? So yeah, it's been a very interesting time, Tom.
What business case can be made for the digitally enabled supply chain in here?
The first thing, I will give an example of a digitally enabled supply chain. So when we work with a large tractor company, and we may all guess based out of Moline, Illinois, one of the statements given to us was, look, we need to transform us from a tractor company to a technology company. What does it mean? When the tractor tills the soil, right, I need to know at that time what's my crop quality and the soil quality for the farmers so that they know if they are buying the tractor, they're also buying a digitally enabled solution to understand the crop analysis.
Sure.
That's a digital supply chain. They're
Yep.
not buying tractor, they're buying solutions.
Sure.
So that's a classic example of a business case where organizations are transforming from, I would say, buying a product or selling a product rather, selling a solution, selling a solution, right? And now think about the power prowess of this, the power of this. Pre-manufacturing, pre-sale, post-manufacturing, post-sale. There's a huge market share in aftermarket.
Mhm.
So all these are very viable business supply chain cases where people are driving a lot of these transformation agenda. Now, let's add on to this. Some organizations are taking sustainability very seriously. That's on top of having a good digital supply chain
Sure.
to bring waste management, regulations, compliance, um, greener products, circular supply chain into the mix. So think about the time that why digital supply chain is so important right now for us.
Gotcha. What's holding companies back from the digital supply chain initiatives, and what are some of the common mistakes that are made in doing so?
So I feel that it's the threefold to this. One is what's the agenda of the organization from a earning per share. It's very important to understand the overall financials of the organization, 10K if it's a public company, 10K of the organization, the ESG report of the organization, where the organization's head is in the next 3 to 5 years. That's a big thing, right? I'm in an acquisition mode, I'm in a divestiture mode, I will grow organically. We have to understand that. Second, it is very important to realize that what's your relationship with your suppliers and distributors? Right? How do we make sure that we really bring technology in the mix and enable supply chain like nothing before? Third, it is important about how do you want to create a access to market. For example, I'm in North America, I want to enter into South America. How do I basically drive this? Now, these are all enablers of supply chain, digital supply chain. So your question is, what's holding them back? If I take all these three examples that I gave you, right, what is one theme that is really clouding the leadership's mind is data.
Yeah.
So the biggest challenge, what we have to do as leaders in supply chain is to really understand the overall single pane of glass, as I call it. I have
Mhm.
tremendous data sources. As various personas come in, how do I see data? How do I make decisions? That's where it's all boiling down to, Tom. It's about how do you make decisions? How do you impact the change? How do you drive change? If you have been figuring this out, you are enabling digital supply chain.
Gotcha. What are the biggest mistakes people are making, companies are making in a digitally supply chain, and what are the opportunities that it presents?
Absolutely. A great question again. So I feel when there is an agenda, there, there there are two things, right? One is, do I want to do by myself? Or I won't hire a consulting firm to do that for us, right?
Mhm.
That thinking tank have to be very clean from a I call it a buy versus make decision, right? So as a leader of a supply chain, as a executive in supply chain arena, what I see this is making that decision. Should I be doing in-house or should I call a third party to work with me? Very important,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Second, don't boil the ocean altogether. Do a small piece, do a lift and shift, crawl, walk, run, as I always call it, right? And figure out the country, the region where change management is the most easy
Mhm.
because it's not about the complications of the project. It's about the change management part of the project. It's the
Mhm.
adoption part of the project. Sometimes leaders think about that, okay, it's more complicated. Let's go to a less complicated country or region. No, it's about who will smell as a leader where change management is the most easy ones. That's where the winning stroke is, right? And that's where most of the challenges come into play as well. So at the end of the day, you can run 15 AIs and 15 Gen AIs. At the end, the humans will make the decision based on the insight. Okay, I'm going to take Brazil as an example to start enabling digital supply chain. So those decisions we have to make.
Gotcha. How can we best ensure that digitally supply chain implementation really delivers the expected results in here?
Another fantastic question. Value, right? So basically, at the end of the day, these are all capital projects. Maybe they may convert into an OpEx project at the end of the day. But for any capital investment, it is very important to show value. As you run the business is running, that's okay. But to transform and change the business, right, which I call capital projects, right, value analysis is extremely critical. So every time that you're doing anything, you're measuring it. So
Yep.
determine your KPIs on day one. Have a 90-day toll gate approach. Every 90 day you measure your progress, right? Make change, be bold, make change and drive change, make some hard decisions sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But ethical decisions, right? Yeah, I mean that's what I think we have to all go after as leaders in supply chain.
What do you think, Anir, are some of the why do some digital transformations fail?
I feel that it's about how fast you can understand the scenario. If
Mhm.
you're not simulating the scenario, you will fail because scenario simulation, I'm a big proponent of scenario simulation, right? When you spend 30, $35 million in large supply chain programs in 2, 3 years, 5 years, you ought to make a quick scenario simulation the first 6 months. Scenario simulation is the way to go, right? Here are 10 scenarios. Let's simulate. Let's make decisions on this, which I call business value assessment, right?
Yep.
Business value assessment is a very critical component in supply chain where you have to understand the value, determine the numerator and the denominator first, and see that you have data in the organization or not. If you don't have those data, then you'll not be able to measure it. Yep.
Yeah, totally makes sense. How should we begin a conversion? How does it start?
So for a conversation for any digital supply chain will be like, I'm assuming I'm doing a role play out here. I'm a chief supply chain officer, and my CEO comes to me and says, "Look, Andy, I go by Andy as well. Andy, look, you have to drive cost optimization, brand reputation, and also make your supply chain be a part of top line. It's a cost, right? Supply chain is a cost.
Of course.
But sometimes, how do you shift your cost center to a profit center, right? See, these are some of the conversations the CEO will be asking the chief supply chain officer. How do you transform your cost center to a profit center? How it affects your brand? And how you basically qualify in the books of, let's say, Gartner or somebody as the best supply chain organization. So there are some like when I say a conversation starter, it's about really understand what are your top 10 priorities for the year, aligning with the CEO agenda within supply chain, what's your top 10? So it's all about alignment, prioritization, don't boil the ocean. And from a conversation starter is about what's the goal for the organization? Is it really acquisition? If it's an acquisition or a merger, then how your supply chain will affect, right? What kind of fast technology innovations you have to make, you have to execute, because you're integrating two organizations in like 6 months. That's your focus, right? So, or you'll say, no, we will not grow through acquisition. We will go through organically. Then how do you improve all your assets in the manufacturing floor? How do you have a supplier collaboration going on? What's your distribution strategy? So those things we have to discuss.
Gotcha. Andy, how can we navigate the endless sea of technology choices?
Another fantastic question, right? So it's about how do you really um, I call it industrial automation, right? In the industrial automation, you have to make a call that do you want a full automation or do you want to make a selective automation? What does it mean? It means that I'm okay to go with 80% capacity planning, 80% optimization, 80% automation, and remaining 20% let the human people run it. Humans run it, right? Sorry, humans run it. So those decisions are important, right? So how fast do you want to drive automation?
Mhm.
How steadily you want to drive automation? Those decisions are very important.
Gotcha. Well, I wanted to keep this today at a very high level, Andy, and I appreciate your time very much. And I want our audience to know that you and I are collaborating on a white paper that will be coming out soon. And I think that will give, well, it'll get granular, if you will, and we'll get into the weeds a little bit about how a company might go about beginning that transformation.
Absolutely.
I
Thank you.
appreciate your time very much.